Well, here it is already, week number 4 of the preseason regular season in the National Football League. Bill Jones, along with young Cody Winstead, and this is Jonesing for Football. And I messed that up. Bill Jones with the Emmy Award winning young Cody Winstead. There you go. How you doing, young Cody? And how is your Emmy Award?
Nice and clean, Bill Jones. Every 15 minutes, I just reshine it, make sure it's looking good. So yeah, it's perfect for the episode today. And I know you Cowboys fans wish it was the preseason after that dismal performance against the Cardinals on Sunday.
Ah, yes. Philadelphia has moved ahead in the preseason regular season standings. Of course, we all know that since no starters play in the preseason, it has become routine in the National Football League for these September games to really just be preseason games that count in the regular season standings. And so we've got just one more of these preseason regular season games. Cowboys taking on the New England Patriots. It's a homecoming at AT&T Stadium as Ezekiel Elliott and the Patriots come to town. And Philadelphia, they have another bye week this week.
Pretty much. The Commanders come to town here to Philly, and Eagles looking to improve to 4-0. I tried to tell you, Bill Jones. I thought the division was going to be close, the NFC East. Eagles, Cowboys back and forth. Maybe not. The Eagles might run away or fly away with this thing. We'll see.
All right. How shocked were you? The results on Sunday in the desert. The Cowboys first fall behind 15-3, and then they can't mount the rally that the Giants and the Commanders did the first couple of weeks of the season when the Cardinals got up big on those two teams and came back to win. Well, the Cowboys weren't able to come back and win. They lost 28-16.
Yeah, that's what was really surprising. It wasn't that the game was back and forth the whole time and the Cardinals kicked the field goal at the end to win it. They led wire to wire, Mr. Jones, and I'm pretty sure that no one predicted that. You and I both came on the show last week and said, hey, let's just Sharpie it in. The Cowboys will beat the Cardinals. It's basically a home game for the Cowboys out west there. Cardinals weren't having it. And you have to give Jonathan Gannon a lot of credit because not only did they beat the Cowboys, but they have played very well in losing efforts the other two games, but still much better than I think most people anticipated.
Can't wait to hear young Cody's upset special guarantee this week as the Arizona Cardinals head to San Francisco to take on the Niners. And of course, plaudits to young Cody last week. It's been resonating around the NFL world. There's only one man in America who's picked the Houston Texans to go into Jacksonville and not only beat the Jags, but also overwhelmed the Jags with the best quarterback in this draft as projected by young Cody back when we broke out the big green notebook in the spring. Yes, C.J. Stroud, what a performance.
Did a great job. And I didn't think they were going to win by 20 points, being 7.5-point underdogs, but I've just been seeing the Texans playing much better and the Jags really not playing well to this point. And so it didn't surprise me when Houston went in there, had a ton of injuries, but CJ Stroud looks like the real deal, Mr. Jones. And I'm glad for that because D'Amico Ryans has himself a quarterback.
Okay, let's get to the real issue here, and that's the Cowboys. Okay.
Yep.
And I'm sure you have some questions on exactly what went on with the Cowboys in the desert last week.
Yes, sir. Mr. Jones, well, it's kind of your two worlds colliding here. Your Cowboys against your Patriots. Bill Belichick comes to town. I believe he's 5-1 against Dallas as the head coach of the Patriots.
Is Belichick 5-1 or is Tom Brady 5-1?
I would say Tom Brady. I'm surprised you don't say Bill Belichick. That's who you would go with. The couple of questions I have for you, Mr. Jones. Through 3 weeks, the Cowboys offense, just 6 pass attempts of 21 plus air yards, so pushing the ball down the field. Only one team in the league has fewer. That's Washington. What do you make of that stat? And is that a result of this Mike McCarthy offensive scheme that is now running its course there in Dallas?
I think it's too small a sample size to make any judgments on Mike McCarthy's offense.
Okay.
And I think what you do, just look at the last 3 games. What happened in New York against the Giants? Cowboys got up big, 16-0, and they didn't have to pass the ball. In fact, it would have been dumb to throw the ball downfield with that big lead, what wound up being a 40-0 win over the Giants. And so throw that game out. Okay. And then come home, you play the Jets, and you get up on the Jets big, and they have Zach Wilson at quarterback, not Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. Again, you're protecting a lead. It doesn't make any sense to throw the ball downfield. In fact, the one throw that Dak Prescott made that was a lengthy throw, but it was sideways and not down the field, the horizontal throw to the sideline that he was trying to throw away, Sauce Gardner almost turned the game around with a pick six that he dropped. So throw that game out because of the score. Now I'm going to tell you also to throw the Arizona game out. And but here's
throw them all out.
Yeah, but this is the reason. And, I watch games around the league, and we all do, and we really don't know what's going on in the inner workings of a team. Okay, we're just saying, wow, how did that happen? Okay, well, to Houston's credit, the reason that I dismissed the Texans being able to go into Jacksonville and win was because of the makeshift offensive line that they've had to throw together in Houston. I think Larry Tunsil's still out, right? And they've got guys that are starting on their offensive line who they just picked up here in the last couple of weeks, basically. Their first-round draft pick from last year, Kenyon Green, is out, and they pick up Kendrick Green, who may be a better player than Kenyon Green. But anyway, my point is, what happened with the Cowboys, and they didn't find out that this was even going to happen until the day before the game, is they were missing 3 offensive starters on their offensive line. And Mike McCarthy did not trust those. Chuma Edoga starting at left tackle for Tyron Smith. The center was Brock Hoffman, as Tyler Biadasz had a hamstring, and so he was a late scratch. And then Zach Martin didn't practice all week. They thought that Zach would get, even though he hadn't practiced all week, might be able to go in the game. He also was scratched, inactive for the game. And you've got a rookie TJ Bass starting at right guard. And so your question about the vertical passing game, throwing the ball downfield, they quickly, in the first series of the game, with a couple of false starts and the penalties that the Cowboys were plagued with 10 penalties in the first half of that game, it was a heavy emphasis on the run game, to the point that it's 28. Get this, Cody. It is 28-16 Arizona with 5.5 minutes left in the game. And Dak underthrows a ball to Michael Gallup in the corner of the end zone. It was called pass interference on the field. They picked up the flag. Okay, 5.5 minutes left in the game. You got the ball at the 18-yard line, and what do? You run 5 straight running plays, five in a row, and the clock was down to 3 minutes left in the game when Dak threw the interception in the end zone to end the game, his next pass after that one earlier to the end zone. That shows you right there the lack of trust that Mike McCarthy had in his offensive line in that game.
Understand that. A couple things. Tony Pollard does lead the league in touches right now, 74, even more than Christian McCaffrey. And then just as far as those downfield pass attempts, Cowboys on pace for 34 this year, which I'll give you a little context. Last year, they had 49, and they were actually 11th best in deep passes, passer rating in those passes. And then going back to 2021, they had 67 deep passes, and they were 3rd best in passer rating on those. So maybe that's something to keep an eye on as far as a dimension that they need to add, or comparing the two types of offenses. All right, let me give you my other one, Mr. Jones. The Cowboys rush defense. You would know more than anyone. That was a huge priority for the team in the offseason. They have right now given up, it's 222 yards against the Cardinals on the ground. They gave up 108 in week 1, 64 in week 2, 222 in week 3. Right now, they're 25th in the league in rush defense, actually giving up more yards this year on the ground than they did last year. Is that a concern for you?
It wasn't a concern at all. In fact, it was a positive for the team last week when the Jets running backs went for 5 carries for about 10 yards. And the rushing yards that the Jets got were all Zach Wilson evading a rush and taking off and running. And the Giants the week before, first drive of the game, Daniel Jones had a lot of rushing yards, but and we were all talking, why weren't the Giants running the ball more? And they just abandoned
the Jets running the ball more too.
Both of them, yeah. Right. So here's what happened in the game against the Cardinals. And Dan Quinn didn't, in his availability on Monday, I don't know if he was not asked about it, I wasn't there, or I didn't see any comments from him on the aggressive nature of this Cowboys defense. I thought when you look at the explosive plays that the Cardinals had, they took advantage of a Cowboys defense that had their ears pinned back, rushing the quarterback. Second play of the game, Micah Parsons he is so intent on either sacking the quarterback or tackling James Conner for a loss in the backfield. No containment at all on the outside. And it was a zone read play, and Joshua Dobbs takes off 44 yards down the sideline. I think the Cowboys have, and the players and maybe the coaching staff have gotten so intent on making big plays, leading the team and leading the league in takeaways the last couple of years, and the plus-minus ratio of +7 in turnovers. That has been their calling card, not only the last 2 years, but the first 2 games of this season. They lose Trayvon Diggs. They're thinking I think that they felt like they had to do more than to try to create turnovers in this game, and it backfired on them with a great game plan put together by the Cardinals, and with Dobbs' ability to run the football. And Rondale Moore, they line him up in the backfield, took advantage of the Cowboys' dime defense that was on the field, and it was untouched 45 yards to the end zone. So I don't look at it so much as I think it was a situational thing. They shorted up in the second half of the game, and I think they had 40 yards rushing in the second half, the Cardinals did. And a lot of that came on the last series of the game, where they were just imposing their will on a beaten Cowboys defense at that point.
Okay. So you're not concerned
We'll see what happens now with Zeke and the Patriots coming to town, I'll just give you a little tease. My guarantee is coming up later, and it has to do with the Patriots versus the Cowboys.
Okay.
Specifically.
I like what you're doing there. Not only that, but after that game comes Christian McCaffrey, and then we'll see how good they are against the run game against those guys as well. All right, let's get into the rest of our podcast, Bill Jones. Okay. We're going to do must-watch game of the week, which we always do. We're going to do pressures on like we always do, and then we're going to give our guarantee, as you just teased right there. All right, your must-watch game of the week is?
It's a no-brainer. Obviously, it's a no-brainer. It's 0-3 Denver at 0-3 Chicago, of course.
I said must watch, not must not watch.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
All right. It is a no-brainer. It is in the early window on Sunday, and it's on CBS. By the way, did you happen to see Jonesing for Football on CBS News Texas this past week? I convinced the powers that be that, hey, maybe you ought to post this on your website. All right. Anyway, here we go. Miami at Buffalo. The Dolphins coming off a 70-point game against those hapless Denver Broncos, 70-20, against a Buffalo team that has rebounded well after the opening Monday night loss against the Jets. They're at 2-1 on the season. This is a matchup that pits the number 1 scoring team in the league against the number 2 scoring team in the league. And of course, the Dolphins are number 1 and the Bills are number 2. Number 1 offense for Miami, number 1 pass offense for Miami, number 1 rush offense for Miami. All right, here's a little intrigue here. the Bills have the number 2 scoring defense in the league. How about that? Number 1 offense against number 2 scoring defense. And by the way, the Dolphins did it, scored. Can you imagine how many points they would have scored against the Broncos if Jalen Waddle had played in the game?
Yeah, you're right. Maybe 100. Probably 100.
He did not play in that game. All right. And also the Bills, number 1 in the league in takeaways. Take that, Dan Quinn and the Dallas Cowboys. They got 2 fumble recoveries and 7 interceptions. Do you think maybe they're working on that no-look shovel pass in Bills practice this week? All right, so there you have it. That's Sean McDermott, defensive background against a Dolphins offense that is the greatest we've seen since 1966, right? Last time a team scored 70 points in a game.
I think so. Who's their quarterback, Bill Jones? I missed that.
That's right. He comes out of the big red draft notebook of young Cody Winstead. That would be Tua, of course. It's a big red notebook, silver and red. Is that what the scarlet? What do they call their colors at Ohio State?
Scarlet and gray, Mr. Jones.
Scarlet and gray. That's what
right
it
there,
is.
like that Zeke helmet right there.
Yeah, there you go. And but he puts a little crimson in there at times, and he was a big proponent of Tua coming into the league and coming into this season. As a matter of fact, he's the leading candidate to be the MVP, wouldn't you say?
He is. Yep.
He surpassed Micah this week.
He is the favorite. How about 20 big plays in 3 games? Is that impressive, Bill Jones?
How many does Dak have?
How many does who?
Dak have?
The Cowboys have 11 as a team.
Oh, as a team.
The Dolphins have 20. Guess who has fewest in the league, Mr. Jones?
Josh Fields.
Try the New England Patriots with 3.
Oh, that's because it's the preseason.
Oh, okay. Exactly. I can't wait for that game. I'm with you. Dolphins, Bills. Who do you like in that one, Mr. Jones, real quick before I give you
know what? You know what? I'll pick the Bills.
You will?
I'll pick the Bills. Yep.
That's a safe pick. I'll go the Dolphins. I'll go the other way. We'll see what happens.
Here's a theory on it. Okay, a team, and it's a pretty young team that Miami has. They start in the old days reading their press clippings, but they start seeing on social media how great they are. I'm sure there's a lot of TikTok videos out there that these young whippersnappers are watching this week. It reminds me of 20 years ago when Oklahoma beat Texas A&M 77-0. Okay. And then and I think it was Mike Lupica pronounced this Oklahoma team in 2003 as the greatest football team ever assembled.
Really?
And then they turned around and they lost the Big 12 championship game like 35-6 to Darren Sproles in Kansas State, like 2 weeks later. So anyway,
who is the quarterback at Oklahoma?
That was Jason White, Heisman Trophy winner Jason White, one of many for the Sooners.
Oh, thank you. Okay. I'm going with the Dolphins, just for the record in that game. All right.
Shocker.
My must-watch game of the week. I'm going with a game pairing the best 2 teams in the best division in football. Ravens.
Cowboys and Eagles are not playing this week.
Ravens at Browns. That's right, Mr. Jones. Baltimore and Cleveland, currently the best 2 teams in the AFC North. Sorry, Pittsburgh. Sorry, Cincinnati. Let's start with the Ravens coming off their first loss of the season in overtime defeat at home against the Gardner Minshew-led Colts. I still think Baltimore's a good squad. Great on third down, efficient through the air, but not quite the expanded pass game that we were promised during the offseason. Right now, Baltimore, the highest run percentage team in the league, 53%, which makes sense when you have Lamar Jackson as your quarterback. Plus, OBJ has been hurt. Mark Andrews has been hurt. And I dig their philosophy, leading the league in 10-plus yard runs with 17. They've had success with this formula in the past. but will it be able to continue this week? I talked all off season about the Browns adding Jim Schwartz as their defensive coordinator was the single biggest reason I picked Cleveland to make the playoffs. We're 3 weeks in, and everyone is finally recognizing his impact. First in yards allowed, 163, by far the fewest in the league. They're first in points allowed, just 10.7. They're first on third downs allowed, just 19.5% allowed. My preseason defensive player of the year, Myles Garrett, kind of had a big game on Sunday. Not sure if you noticed, but 3.5 sacks, 9 pressures. Bill Jones.
That's Micah Parsons like.
That's better than Micah Parsons.
No, Micah had 9 pressures the week before against the Jets. Go look it up.
3.5 sacks.
He has on the season.
Oh, okay, exactly. Okay. He just owned Tennessee. Miles has done well in his career against Baltimore, 6 sacks in 10 career games. Excited to see how Ravens OC Todd Monken game plans for him, especially with the status of center Tyler Linderbaum and tackle Ronnie Stanley up in the air. I'll take Cleveland in a tight game, Mr. Jones, because of that defense and Deshaun Watson, who I watched the Browns game last week. Deshaun Watson played his best game as a Cleveland Brown on Sunday, finally looking comfortable and confident. Give me my Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, now your Cleveland Browns. Okay.
Last year, they were my Detroit Lions. The year before that was my Arizona Cardinals. This year, it's my Cleveland Browns.
Can you, all right, just as a matter of review, who did you pick to go to the Super Bowl this year? Do you remember?
No. No, I have the Niners, and who is the other team?
I don't know. Kansas City?
No, not Kansas City. Oh, no, Cincinnati over.
Oh, yeah, it was
49.
Cincinnati. How they doing?
They're 1-2. They're a game back, Mr. Jones. Thanks for asking.
Same spot they've been in every year at this
That's
time.
right, exactly. They're in their prime position. They're hunting right now.
Okay, well, I love those. Those are good matchups. Good matchups. They don't compare with Denver at Chicago, but they are good matchups.
I will not be watching Denver or Chicago. All right, you ready to do pressures on, Mr. Jones?
Pressures on. Okay.
Get to it. Let's see.
Speaking of Denver at Chicago, pressures on.
Sean Payton.
I'm trying to figure out which one has the most pressure. And is it Sean Payton, who has the big, humongous contract and went in there talking about how horribly that team was coached last year?
Exactly.
And he gives up a Super Bowl era record 70 points to the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
And I guess you're going to blame it on Nathaniel Hackett. I don't know.
Yeah, I would. That's what I would.
And that just shows how bad this team was coached last year, right?
Right, of course.
And so or is it on Matt Eberflus? I really like Matt Eberflus. When he was in Dallas, he was the guy, he was the brains behind the defense when they did well. He wasn't when they did poorly.
Of course.
But sharp guy. And of course, he goes to Indianapolis and then got the head coaching job with Chicago. And there's there's a litany of issues going on there off the field. And in fact, the defensive coordinator, Alan Williams, has let go or resigned last week. And Josh Fields calling out the coaching staff for his problems. And then he had to go back
Justin Fields.
Yeah. Huh?
Why are you calling him Josh Fields?
Justin Fields.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought you were repeating. Okay, good. And they had equipment stolen as well. Did you see that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Man, what a bad week to be a Bears.
Yeah. So anyway, but I think more pressure is on Eberflus because it's job pressure, because Peyton's not losing his job. He's just losing his ego. Okay.
But what can't you argue that Eberflus is already going to be fired? Like, there's no real way that he's
okay.
Yeah.
All right. You can argue that way too. You're saying it's just totally hopeless. That
Exactly. There's no pressure. There was already
the pressure came before they gave up 34 points in the first half to Kansas City the other day.
Exactly.
Which, by the way, the Kansas City Chicago game, it was touted by Fox as being the most watched football game in the history of football or something on Sunday afternoon, because some girl was in the Travis Kelce's suite, or the watching the game. What was her name?
I watched it, and I will say this: I watched it. I was going to watch regardless, but I watched even longer because Taylor Swift was in the booth.
But what happened? Kansas City got ahead 34-0, and then they switched out of that game. And what game did they go to? America's team getting beat by the Cardinals. The reason that was the most watched game ever wasn't because Taylor Swift was at the game. It was because they switched to the Cowboys-Cardinals game in the second half, right?
So funny, I was in Chicago on Sunday, and they switched off the Bears game at a Bears bar. there were Bears bars, and people just switched off, and it was like, okay, we got to get out of here. This game's over.
All right. So there's my pressures on one of those two. I can't figure out which one. Yeah.
Yeah, one of those. That makes sense. All right. My pressure is on Jameis Winston of the Saints going against his former team, the Bucs. This is a huge NFC South matchup, made even bigger because of the injury to Derek Carr, who's week to week after spraining his AC joint in his throwing shoulder last week against Green Bay. Saints were up 17-0 when the injury happened, ended up losing 18-17, even though Winston did drive them down in position for a game-winning field goal from 46 yards, but they missed it wide right. Winston was solid in relief, 10 of 16, 101 passing yards, 0 touchdowns, and probably most importantly, 0 interceptions. That'll obviously be key given his history of giveaways. Did some research on Jameis, been with the Saints since 2020, and even though he hasn't won a game as a starter since week 1 of 2022, he's been very solid during his tenure in New Orleans. 6-4 as a starter, 18 touchdowns, 8 picks, 93 rating. And with that talented group of skill players around him, Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, Juwan Johnson, and this week, Alvin Kamara comes off suspension and he's back. Just got to take care of the ball and let those guys make all the plays along with that dominant defense. As crazy as this sounds, Mr. Jones, this game could end up deciding the division. I think New Orleans and Tampa are the best 2 teams in the NFC South. And they just need Jameis to hold down the fort until Carr returns. So pressure's on Jameis Winston in this revenge game against the Bucs.
And by the way, about that NFC South, even though Tampa Bay lost to Philadelphia and Atlanta lost last week, there's 3 teams in that division that have above 500 records: Tampa Bay, New Orleans, and Atlanta. And Atlanta playing overseas in London against Jacksonville in the very early game on a Sunday morning this week. All right, I like that. Okay, let's review our guarantees from last week. And we've already said off the top, we've patted young Cody on the back for his unbelievable guarantee. What makes that, which was Houston over Jacksonville, CJ Stroud over Trevor Lawrence. Yep. And so what does that make your record on guarantees through?
1 and 2. I missed week 1 and nailed it in week 2, just like you. So we're both 1 and 2, correct, Mr. Jones?
Yep. And so I had a couple last week.
Yeah, you had the
New England
to win and New England to win. You had to double up. You went 2-teamer on that.
That would give me another win, right?
No, you're 1 and 2.
I did 2 last week.
You're 1 and 2. You're 1 and 2. Unless you want to give me 2 for going Texans and CJ Stroud.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So
we're 1 and 2. We're both 1 and 2. So we are sub 500 on our guarantees. Here's my guarantee for this week. I mentioned it. I teased it earlier. It's the run game of the Patriots against the Cowboys. Oh. And more specifically, here's my guarantee. Ezekiel Elliott in his homecoming game will come into AT&T Stadium, coming off an 80-yard performance last week against the Jets. For the first time in 31 games in his NFL career, Zeke Elliott will rush for 100 yards against the Cowboys. That is my guarantee this week.
Wow.
What do you think about that? It will be his 30th. It will be his 30th 100-yard game of his NFL career.
That's juicy, Mr. Jones. I like the sound of that.
There you go. By the way, Jerry Jones said they're going to do something to honor Zeke before the game. When I heard that on the radio, he said that on the radio. And when I heard that, I said, how would Bill Parcells react to some pregame ceremony honoring a player on the opposing team? What are we going to have? We're going to have a homecoming court. We're going to crown him with a homecoming king crown. I could just hear Parcells.
Oh, I like
What's your guarantee?
All right. By the way, the last 100-yard game for Zeke, week 5 of 2021 against the Giants.
That's exactly right.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. That's spicy, Mr. Jones. I like it.
That was 30 games ago.
Okay. As you mentioned before, my guarantee is the 49ers hosting the Arizona Cardinals, who are all of a sudden a really good team. I'm predicting the Niners defense holds the Cardinals under 10 points, Mr. Jones. So the Cardinals, of course, scored 28 against your Cowboys last week, and they're averaging 24 a game this season, actually 12th best in the league. At the same time, the 49ers are giving up 14 a game. So I think this qualifies as a bold prediction.
I don't
Cardinals.
Think that's not a bold prediction. The 49ers are giving up 14 a game. Okay, they're going to score 5 points less than that.
Yeah, but the Cardinals are also scoring 24 a game. Just put 28 on your doomsday defense. Remember that?
All right, I'll let you have it. There was a layup for Cody on his, last week you come with the juice with the Texans. Nobody in the world's picking the Texans to beat Jacksonville on the road. And now you disappoint this week with, the 49ers are going to limit the Cardinals to less than 10 points.
Okay, how about this?
Okay.
7 or less.
7 or less. All right, I like that better.
Okay, I'll take that.
All right, 7 or less. There you go.
Look, your mocking of me made me change my own prediction. They're going to score like 9. We all know they're going to score 9.
Because they're playing the Niners.
That's true. That would make sense.
And by the way, the Cowboys are playing the Niners next week. Sneak peek. I think I know what my favorite game of the week is next week.
Yeah, exactly. Me too.
All right. But will the Cowboys be a 500 team going in there? All right. That was highly enjoyable. I can't wait for the regular season, regular season to start next week with week number 5. Young Cody, enjoy your Emmy Award for another week.
Hold on. It's been like 15 minutes, so I got to re-shine it because it hasn't been shined in 15 minutes.
There you go. All right. And thank you, all of you, including Babe Laufenberg, for joining us here for another edition of Jonesing
for Football. Love you, babe.